This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're ready to roll. Okay, well, now we'll call the legal committee meeting to order for Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, and it is now 2:13 p.m. Clerk will please call the roll.
Chair Hildebrand,
Here.
Councillor Arnold,
Present.
Councillor Odfessa,
Here.
Councillor Corn. You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Now, if I can have a motion on the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, it's all right with everybody. I would like to move the non-action items to make it the next order of business right after approval.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move item 11, which is the non-action items, as the next order of business after the approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, being none, so moved. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the legal committee meeting Thursday, May 25th, 2023.
Move to adopt the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Okay, there's a correction on page 5. Item number 4, resolution 183, it should read 19-83.
Line 6 on item 4.
Thank you.
Item 6.
Line 6 on item.
It should read resolution 19-83.
Well, you have to start at the top. No, that's the new one.
Thank you.
19 what?
19-83.
Correct.
It says 183, should be 19-83.
Oh, well, with those corrections, Mr. Chairman, so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second corrected minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, being none, so moved. Next item are the departmental reports. First one being from the city clerk's office. In your packet.
Nothing different this month. We are still doing IPRAs, getting ready for the reports. We are in the process of destruction of records in October of 2023. Stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Councilor Perry? Any questions? Councilor Bess?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor? No questions, thank you. Next item, human resources. Is not here.
I just texted her.
Upstairs, she thought she was going to be late.
Yeah, she thought she was at the end.
Okay. Try to move these ahead so you don't sit here.
They have a.
She's actually in a meeting.
Okay, so we'll let the record show the report, Human Resources Monthly Report. The only thing I didn't see is she was doing a turnover report. And I don't see that in this report. The monthly turnover will be rolling at 12-month average as well. Councilor Odfessa.
Mr. Chair, there is a question that I would like to ask Human Resources, and that's on the pay stubs. Maybe somebody else can answer the question or not. But there's a administrative fee being deducted from, I guess, every check.
Is it a $2 fee?
Oh,
69 cents, but she told me what it was.
she already did.
She came in after you left. It is an
okay, never mind.
administrative fee.
I think it's a workman comp fee, is it not?
No, it's an administrative fee for insurance.
Yeah. It's nothing the city's getting. It's a pass through. I would guess it to be. So
Thank you, Juan.
does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Any next item, safety department. And are they in there as well?
I believe so.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I did have some questions for them.
We'll get them when they show up, Mr. Chairman.
Hopefully she'll show up after there, and we will reserve that for further conversation at this meeting.
Just squeeze them in between whatever it is.
Yep, I do this.
Oh, there's safety.
Oh, here she is.
Oh, are you just calling on me?
Yeah, we're just calling on you. We thought we'd put you guys, move you guys up so you don't have to stay there all.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, so-
To
go right ahead.
discuss safety, we had a reduced number for the month of May. We've only had 23 incidences that we investigated as far as people or property for the city. That was very good. 11 of those were motor vehicle accidents, with 9 being caused by third party. So 9 of the 11 were third party caused, and we're working on getting recovery from insurances on those. And I don't know if you can see the report per department or not, but I was proud that we had a reduction overall. I stand for any questions.
No, I think you answered the questions I was going to have of why we seem to be so much over, but it seems to be a third-party driving problem.
It is, sir.
And remember, Mr. Chairman, she should change the criteria for the previous year reports will not show the same data as the current,
Right.
because she changed.
I did change. Yes, sir, you're exactly right. I am reporting all accidents and incidents, whether it be an injury, a car wreck, property damage, building damage.
No matter what it is, we're reporting them now.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're getting all the numbers.
So it may look like we're running more, but we're really probably not.
I don't think we are.
Yeah. Okay, that answers my
But
question.
we are addressing the incidences and either doing training, like right now we have a big push on heat safety
Yeah,
training, because we want to negate that hazard as far as having issues from that. And so we can't turn down the sun. So we're going to train on how to protect from it.
good. Thank you. It looks like we're going to have a hot summer.
Yes, sir.
So, any questions? Councilors?
There's a lot of stop signs that are not visible in our city. And there's a lot. I mean, I don't know.
We addressed that in infrastructure yesterday, Mr. Mayor. The contractor that's contracted to take care of a lot of that kind of stuff has stopped and he's not renewing his contracts. We've got a new contract going out. Hopefully we get that settled. I've noticed that as well. Not just stop signs, but other fire signs.
Yeah.
That, so hopefully they'll be able to get that out and get a contract. So.
Hopefully sooner rather than later. Yeah, so, okay. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. We shall move on to item number 1 now, which is RAC leases. First item being Caboo Aerospace Building, 108A, land lease 7-23. Lana.
This is for Kabu. We're considering recommending approval to authorize Kabu Aerospace to enter into a lease for building 1083A and a land parcel. Both of these were in the assignment of leases from Stewart, and so we're now getting them in their own leases. The assignment from Stewart is no longer. So we were able to negotiate with Kabu for 14,000 square feet, more or less, and 11,385 square feet, more or less, for the space located next to their training facilities. So they have, or actually, hangar 84. If you'll go, they have a small parcel of land that
price they were paying. We agreed to continue on that price structure. Any questions?
Does so are we writing a new lease with it?
Correct.
That's just total new lease.
This one's a completely brand new lease with Kavu. I guess I didn't give you the term. It is a 5-year.
Which I assume that they have.
With a one option to renew. So they're committing to a 5-year with us with one option to renew for another 5 years successive.
Yeah. And the 225 is our market rate out there right now.
For that building, there is no heating or cooling, and it's limited water. It's like a hose bib.
Okay.
That they have. So it's on the land side. It's not on the AOA side. So it's comparable to the other facilities in that same condition.
Yep. If there's no other question, I'd entertain a motion. Councilor Paisler.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I've promoted you, Mr. Chair.
It's fine.
He's sitting here, he'll take it up with you after the meeting.
Oh, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
I move that we send to full council a recommendation to authorize Kavu Aerospace to enter into a lease for building number 1083A and a land parcel, and the tenant agrees to pay to landlord as rent the sum of $31,500 payable in 12 monthly installments of $2,625 for the building and $3,644 per year payable in 12 payments of $271.37 for the land. And thereafter, rent will increase annually by CPI urban, all cities average of 3%, whichever is greater.
Going on consent calendar?
He said full council.
I'm asking.
He's asking a question. Full council
or consent?
You never done that.
he said full council?
Well, we can consider consent, that's okay.
You want it on consent?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Kavu Aerospace lease on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item, which is item 1B, the Kavu Aerospace lease 1140 83 land renewal.
All right, this is to consider recommending approval to accept Kavu Aerospace's request one of 2 5-year renewal options on a lease. Kavu requested the first of the 2 5-year renewals in March of 2022, during the time that the city manager had asked us to place the leases in a moratorium. So it took us a little bit to get back to the table and work through the language to make sure we were on the same page with the renewal. The renewal term will begin retroactive July 1, 2022, since the lease states it's a successive renewal. And the tenant is okay with that, and it will end June 30th, 2027. At that time, they'll have the option to request a secondary 5-year renewal. So this lease was negotiated for a term of 3 to 5 terms. So it's a multi-parcel lease, including building 1140. And if you'll go to the next slide, 1140 was built in 1956. It is a CMU building. There are no heat controls in that building at all. And they do have water. There's a bathroom in the wintertime. They put space heaters out there with them so that they have use of the bathroom. And then the other parcel is building 83, which is a Quonset hut right here that is, there's no temperature, no water, no anything. It's just basically used for storing items that they need out of that crunch pad. And the crunch pad is the 5,000 square feet more or less. So that's where they're tearing down aircraft. So the rent has accelerated at 3% annum per the current lease terms. And the current rent rate is $8,856 annually and $738 monthly, making the land parcel consistent with other AOA land parcels at 25 cents that are in the AOA area per square foot. But the building prices are pretty low just because it's, they're kind of slated for not going to be doing a lot of repairs on them. The fronts we will never repair. It will just last as long as it lasts out there. It's dilapidating. So their square footage for the buildings are at $1.08 per square foot. And those were negotiated in that initial lease. So I'm just presenting the renewal.
So this lease will be backdated to
July.
July 1 of 2022.
Correct. And they do have one more option to renew for another 5 years.
Yeah. This is an old lease that didn't have the cost of living index in it.
Correct.
Any questions? Councilor.
Question for Brian Tama. Is this our standard indemnifications in here? I just want to make sure, I always want to make sure of that. I see in here under E, remedies 15.
Page number?
28, 6 and 11.
Thank you.
Remedies for landlord for default is the only indemnification I find. It talks about the indemnification if, let me get back to where it was. Right place. Now I've lost where I even found the indemnification at all when I looked up at you. I am sorry.
My face has that effect on people.
It does. Forgive me. It's not where it was. Anyway, indemnification is just critical, and I only found it one place that looked as if it was only indemnification if people not part of the contract.
So, Counselor, in paragraph 16, legal fees, the tenant shall indemnify and save the landlord harmless from all liabilities, loss, and expense. That the
Maybe you found it before I would get to it. Okay. Make sure that's our standard, that was.
Our standard language has changed, but this is equivalent.
Yeah, this is a 5-year-old lease, and all we're doing is an extension instead of signing a new one. So I guess we're just letting the old lease stand under its terms and conditions.
I just always want to make sure as times change that we change our language with the indemnification.
Well, they're working on it, but it takes a while to get there.
I think in the future, would it not make sense that we just sign a new lease agreement?
I have no problems with that. That's sort of the discretion of the director.
Yeah. So, something to look at. Something to look at. That way we're staying current on all the terms and conditions that we're asking for in today's world. So
They've got 2 years left on this one. We're beat.
no, they've got 4 more years left on this.
And we're updating it, backdating it a year, so there's 3 years left.
There's a 5-year deal.
it's 5 years.
5 years.
So there's 4 left.
Yes.
It starts July 1 of 21 and it will end in June 30th of,
I got it.
or 22. It's 27.
Got it.
So,
You take your shoes off, it's easier to count it all.
No, I'm just trying to get focused on it a little bit better.
Get it
okay.
straight.
This is a continuation of the previous lease. Well, you're limited, Mr. Chairman.
Hmm.
That makes it somewhat limiting.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? May I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, move item 1B, the CAVU lease for building 114083 land renewal to the consent agenda. Next city council meeting.
So I have.
I'm not as wordy as some people sitting at the table.
So we have a motion and a second to place on the consent agenda the approval of the Taboo Aerospace renewal of their lease. Which the renewal term will be July 1, 2022, ending on June 30, 2026. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, being same. Not opposed. Let the record show. 4-0. Next item on the agenda is an RFP 23-009, which is for the Roswell Air Center strategic plan to Meade and Hunt. Ms. Griego.
Chairman and councilors, we're asking that you consider recommending RFP 23009 second posting Roswell Air Center strategic plan to Meade and Hunt in Middletown, Wisconsin. On May 23rd, 2023, bids were held for this RAC strategic plan. 3 bids were received. The evaluation committee completed the review, and it is their recommendation to qualify and award this contract to Meade and Hunt. The airport advisory committee voted 3 in favor, with 1 abstention at its meeting on June 6th. The financial consideration is $300,000 has been budgeted for this project.
Any questions for Ms. Graves? Councilor Arnold.
Yes, Ms. Jennifer. Are we actually allowed to have access to that strategic plan? I know I wasn't sure on the rules on that. I know it's an RFP, so I didn't know if there was access to that, the form writing.
Well, if any counselors would like access to that, I don't mind sharing that information with you all. To the public, not at this time until an award has been made.
Okay, so if you could actually email that, I can put it in writing as well, and I'll make a request for it, okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
Any other questions? Ms. Kriegel, what is the expected time frame for them to accomplish this?
I believe it was 6 months.
6 months from awarding of the.
Awarding.
It's already in your budget for 24.
Yes.
Good. Requires no budget adjustment at all. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, Mr. Chairman, but
Well, that was the question. That was the question.
There's no expected changes.
We do not need to let them know how much we approved and let them come in.
I think they may already
I
have.
think they probably know what it is.
That's the trouble with this deal, Mr. Chairman.
I know.
You take a lot of the negotiation ability away from.
It's amazing how bids come in close to what we're talking.
Well.
It's the transparency. So anyway, that's an editorial. I'll leave it alone. So do I?
I'm working on that problem, Mr. Chairman. I move that we adopt RFP 23-009, Roswell Air Center strategic plan to Meade and Hunt.
Is that to put it on the full council agenda?
Let's try consent. I don't like it, but.
You're probably going to get pulled at $300,000.
Well, that's fine.
So,
At least we'll know they looked at the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
Second.
So I have a motion, a second, to approve the RFP 23-009 to be awarded to Meade and Hunt to be placed on the consent agenda for the next council meeting. Any further discussion? There being none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Let the record show 4-0. Next item on the agenda is the RFP 23-013, construction services and repairs, considering recommending approval of award recommendation to multiple bidders.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the council. I'm here this afternoon to ask that you consider recommending approval of award recommendation to multiple bidders for RFP 023-013, construction services and RFP 23-013 was posted to Roswell Daily Record on April 24th, 2023. Bidder submission deadline was June 13th, 2023, with 4 vendors submitting the bids. All 4 vendors were approved by the evaluation committee for a multi-bidder award. The 4 bidders were Smith Co. out of Caballo, New Mexico, Wade Construction out of Roswell, White Rock Construction out of Roswell, and Facility Build out of Albuquerque. Okay, great question.
Are there any questions for Mr. Holton? From anyone? That's really good. Thank you, Justin.
That's how I like it to go, yes.
So,
Right. Be all right.
being no discussion. Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we send to full council. Let me back up. We send it on consent agenda to full council for
We're recommending to adopt the resolution establishing a procedure and fee schedule for public records inspected and distributed under Mexico inspection of public.
Thank you,
I
back
think
on.
we're back on.
I think we're back on. So I have for you an IPRA fee resolution, IPRA fee schedule, I'm sorry. The purpose of this resolution is to designate the custodian of records, which we have 3 for the city, and to obtain a fee schedule for inspection of public records. As you all know, every person has a right to inspect records. And let's not this slide. Go to the next slide. Okay. There we go. And so currently, we have the Roswell Police Department doing their own records as of 2016. Georgia Davy is currently the one handling those records. For the municipal court, Belinda Franco has been handling those records as of 2021. And the city clerk's office has done all the rest of the HIPAA requests. Next slide. So this is our proposed fee schedule. And currently we have been charging 50 cents per photocopy for an 8.5 by 11 inch document, $10 for USB flash drive if the files are too large to send electronically, $10 for postage if the requester wishes to have their documents mailed to them, whether it be hard copies or a flash drive. I have added on the 11 by 17 photocopy at $1 per page, 18 by 24 or 24 by 36 photocopy at $5 per page. The reason for this increase is because a plotter is used to, not a printer, when making these copies. So they're usually for maps, and we have our engineering department do those. And as well as charging for records transmitted electronically at actual cost. Next slide. So we are
The city clerk's office proposes a minimum of $15 an hour for the preparation of electronic records to cover the actual cost. And so the process usually goes, we receive records, we obtain the records from various departments, and sometimes they can be very long requests, theirs can be super short. Sometimes we involve our legal department to get involved, and so this can range from a 3-day time frame that we're allowed, or it can range for months, depending on how big the request is. Then we notify the requester records are available, and we provide the records. Majority of the time, records are never picked up. For instance, the most recent request we had received a very large request asking for emails and files, and to where it took us past the 15 days, or no, I'm sorry, up to the 15 days. We informed the requester records were available. The amount, I believe, was $500, and the individual came in, requested to inspect the records rather than paying, which is, and so the requester inspected the records, asked for copies of 30 records, and said they would come back for them. Well, they never came back to purchase the records. The individual came in and requested 3 individual records, and those are all sent to him electronically. We lost out on all of that personnel time to get those records when initially they ended up getting all of them. Next slide. In the chart, the green shows the total of IPRAs for each year. The blue shows how many of those were electronic, and the gray shows how many of those actually. Times are different now. Everyone is submitting things electronically. We are just asking approval to move forward with what the law already gives us the authority to do. And by adopting this resolution, the city would benefit from being able to recover costs in the preparation of electronic records as authorized by the inspection of public records. I stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Maybe I missed it, you have to forgive me. Your voice is much softer.
Sorry.
Your voice is much softer than previous. But, records transmitted electronically, photocopies not utilized, just as actual cost. Help me with that once again.
So legally, actual cost is defined as, can you help me, please? Legal.
I can answer that. So actual cost is basically actual cost, what it actually costs the city to get the records and produce the records. What the resolution here is trying to do is recover costs that the city expends in the gathering, collection, and producing of records electronically. That is authorized pursuant to the Inspection of Public Records statute. It's just something the city hasn't really done. Formerly, people would do things in paper. You would get your costs back in the paper. Now everybody wants everything electronically. So the city ends up spending a ton of resources gathering, collecting, communicating with requesters. And in an effort to recover those costs for the city, this resolution would officially authorize the city to implement the fee schedule that they have here. The clerk's office is proposing a $15 an hour rate for the preparation of electronic records.
And that's what I'm getting at when it says actual cost. Who determines what actual cost is actual cost? What your paycheck and your paycheck is per hour, in a combination rate, plus what the electricity costs to run what the internet costs to run, what is actual cost? And if we're coming down to a 15 an hour, why do we not put that in?
The 15 an hour, I believe, is in this resolution.
It's not stated on the.
It's stated as actual cost, but as the presentation is is that they're, as I understand it, electing to do $15 an hour. I would put it, so if you're doing actual costs as like part of a lawsuit or, billing at a law office, you're literally going to press a button and start typing, make a phone call. You're going to charge people, whoever did that work. So if it was an attorney, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 doing that work, if a paralegal was doing that work, if a legal secretary is doing that work, they all have different rates. Keeping track of all of that is a significant source in and of itself. And hence the reason that the clerk's office is seeking to recover costs, not necessarily all of the costs, right? I mean, they're willing to, if it's trivial, for instance, it's probably not worth tracking an IPRA that can be done in less than 15 minutes. It's probably not worth, sending that person a bill or generating any of these types of requests for payment. And so in an effort to sort of find a happy medium with what is actual cost versus, what is a method of cost recovery that is not overly administratively burdensome for the city in order to implement. And this $15 an hour, I think, is striking a balance between that. Anything over 15 minutes at $15 an hour, so that particularly burdensome requests have an upfront cost, so that to encourage people to come and actually get the records that they request, rather than have all these records prepared, resources expended, and then not having those records collected, leaving the city just basically in the red.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say, yeah, I'm not a member of your committee. This is the committee's work at this point, but if this came to full council, I would have these questions to, I trust our clerk. I know our clerk's office is going to be very legit in how this is handled and done, but I think that we need to have this as clear as possible for the public as to what they're getting into.
So when we vote, do you have a maybe? Is it just yes or no, or is there a maybe? Because
I'm moving.
because I have to do a lot of thinking. While I recognize and everything you're saying makes complete sense from an administrative point, I'm actually looking at that a majority of my ward would probably not be able to afford to get information. And that concerns me because they're taxpayers and they're paying taxes. So they're not actually able to, some of them aren't able to come up with this. And so this is a hard one for me, because while I recognize that we're losing out, and I do understand and value the actual legal system and how they charge by the 15-minute, but
it's by the 6-minute interval.
Is it now? Is it
10th of an hour?
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, they're getting more. They're getting more than what I was doing. But at this point, the government, it's a little hard for me on the government side. So I have to I'm going to have to really stew, and I have like 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that. So I'll just kind of let you know, I'll probably be asking you further questions, but I just kind of wanted to say that I'm not cozy with it.
So I have a question for city attorney, is that, does this, the way the ordinance is written, fall under state statute and is in full compliance with state statute?
Yeah, Josh reviewed and I agree that it's legally sufficient.
It's in full compliance with state statute. The other thing.
No, it's the other places have a fee schedule that's set, so they might say there's a 1 hour de minimis, there's no charge, and then after that you say increments. If that's something the council wants to work with the clerk's office, and have a set schedule that can be published. And we could bring that to you next month if that's preferred.
Yeah, I have the same feeling about, charging and this cost recovery methodology. And I understand, and I don't know how many hours are now for 2023, how many hours were spent by the city staff for those 232 electronic requests. Did we spend, I know sometimes electronic requests don't take much because records are out there. You just grab a file, put it in, send it off, you're done. And some of them may take a lot longer than that. So I'm maybe would think it's the minimus charge, first hour free, and then you're going to pay. And I would like for us to set a rate,
And a
not
limit.
just actual costs. We're going to set a rate and live with it and let it be. And $15 an hour don't even come close to cost recovery at all. And I'm not a big fan of the whole cost recovery kind of thing. It's service to provide for the citizens of this community. So,
Chairman,
Councilor Corn.
don't have any questions. Got a comment. At $15 an hour, the rest of the taxpayers in Roswell are subsidizing that individual's request because we're taking it short at $15 an hour. And I'm all for open meetings and people asking whatever they want. Matter of fact, I've got a bunch of them. My guest already trained herself to call me and ask me and not bother these folks. And I answer their questions and they always seem to be satisfied. If they're not, I tell them to take the time, sit down and write a letter. So, I understand that. So, my vantage point, the rest of the citizens subsidizing the questions of 315 is just as bad or worse, in my opinion, than charging them $15. And then we just heard that we've got one that's ready. Gosh knows how many hours for that many pages of documents for them to come in and say, well, I just want this 5, or I just want this 2 or 3, and then don't even bother to come back and pick it up. Open records is one thing. We're working our tail off to comply.
Yep.
It's taken a tremendous amount of effort, not only from the clerk's office, but legal, it gets to finance, our city manager, or his assistant. And that's not all of them, because she said early on, some departments do their own. I would really question how much it's going to cost if we knew how much time police officers were using to go back and pull their reports or whatever's requested. $15 is still a cheap deal, in my opinion. That's where I am on this.
Ms. Dorover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Counselors, employees, and 2 of us that are from the general public. My question is, let's say you have a presenter, and I'm going to pick on you, Shelley, because you're perfect. She has a report and she gets it to the clerk and the clerk puts it on the agenda. I mean, I can get it. It's usually the last page of this committee meeting. But what happens if you get a presenter that has a PowerPoint, but he doesn't get it to the city clerk? What happens if you have a presenter that is handing out handouts and doesn't get it to the city clerk? Why should I have to pay for their not doing their due diligence to get it to the city clerk on time? If I can get it someplace else, or if I can get it off the agenda, then that's I have to do it. But for somebody, a presenter or somebody that's handing out material, if they don't give it to the city clerk, why should I have to pay for it? I'm just curious.
And I believe that would fall into the no more than 15 minutes, 20 minutes to obtain that request, if that were the situation, and that we offer that at no charge in our presentation.
No charge.
Yes.
That's for 15 minutes under this proposal. It's free.
Yes.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think what we're trying to get to here is we want to make sure that those requests that are burdensome and we've done all the work, I think it's targeted for those bigger requests where we've done the work. We have a number of flash drives in the office where we've done all the work and they haven't ever picked them up. And so I think this is where if we could find a solution to get those records, I think that's where we're.
Counselor, may I ask you? Is there any way that we could require a refundable deposit before, when they make this request?
I've seen it done.
Hmm?
I've seen it done.
Yeah, where we could require some of these, and if they don't pick the goods up, then we're going to charge against that refundable deposit
Yeah.
and be compensated for those people that are just creating work. To me, it sounds like you're just creating work for it.
Yes. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid is
Yeah.
trying to.
And I don't get that. That's very inefficient.
Yes.
Because if somebody wants the information, they're entitled to the information, but come and get your information.
Yeah, we're happy to provide it. We're happy to get it to you on time. It's the ones that we've spent hours. We have a request that's due the first part of August of emails that we have to go through on a regular,
Yeah. Do we have a methodology that we could create for requiring a deposit? And is that totally legal?
Yes, I don't. The problem is there's almost no case law on how the charging provisions work in IPRA. And novelty is the bane of any lawyer's existence. So what I'd probably suggest is we call up the 10 biggest municipalities in the state and see what they're doing and adopt some median in between them. That's probably the safest route.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
Mr. Chair, most all of these things are governed by the Open Meetings Act, and the state's attorney general has got a heavy hand in that, and as those things change and develop, whether it's a max of $1 per page or $15 for actual, the actual conveniency of that, those laws are subject to change year by year. But it is governed by the Open Meetings Act.
Councilman Ray?
Just a question, as I'm reading Exhibit A, it says any individual may submit a request of inspection of public records with the exception of those records, blah, blah. But then it says in the second sentence, requests for the public records may be submitted orally or written. However, the procedures and penalties prescribed by the New Mexico Inspection of Public Records Act only applies to written requests. Can you explain that to me so I understand?
Yes, absolutely. If I go into the county building and say, I'd like to see Bill Williams' employment contract, and they don't produce it for me, there's really nothing I can do other than do it in writing. And then if they fail to produce it, I would have a cause of action. So no cause of action accrues under IPRA until the actual request is made in writing. But that's.
Okay, that makes sense to me now. I don't read legal jargon every day, and it just confused me.
Yeah, no, that said, a pleasant reminder to everybody, an oral request should be treated as a written request. Please just produce it if they're asking, because if you do, then we can't get sued if they write it and we forget.
Yeah, and that's part of the concern with some of this is you see complaint letters, various forms of communication done in writing. Oh, by the way, they've got a little slip in of an IPRA request somewhere in the page of the document. And then, every one of these has to be treated seriously because there is a legal impact on the backside if you don't produce available records within time.
Well, Councilor Best?
I want to make sure that you're going to follow the Mexico state statute to its T, because 2 years ago I tried to attack this and I was told by the previous clerk that you have to provide any IPRA information to the people free of charge.
What the statute?
It's not.
That's what I've asked.
Yeah, that's
Counselor.
the statute.
Is that we're in full compliance with state statute.
This would be legally sufficient in my view. No, the policy wise, some municipalities have straight up said it's always going to be free of its charge, and that is a pure policy decision.
Well, it's not only cities, but it's also counties, school boards, or
everybody.
Any government entity.
Or private entities that hold documents for the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
UNM Foundation.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, if you want to amend it, make it for an hour free.
well, I'd like to see something, a little more research, if you'll reach out to some other communities to see, and it's a municipal league, how they weigh in on this. So I would like to see a little more review done on this. So I'm going to ask for a motion for this to be postponed until next legal committee meeting.
Table. Motion to table, Mr. Chairman.
I ask for a postponement.
I understand tabling the same motion.
I ask for a postponement, Counselor.
I'll give you a motion for tabling this item.
I'm asking for a postponement till next meeting.
I'll make a motion to postpone until the next meeting.
Okay.
I got a motion and a second to postpone this item till the next legal committee meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Let the record show so moved. 3 ayes, 1 opposed. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, which is the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Agent Company doing business with Omnia Partners.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council. I come before you today to consider recommending approval of the intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement and authorization for the city manager to enter contract with National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance Company doing business as Omnia Partners and the city as a participating public agency. So as you know, the city looks for viable ways to procure goods and services for the city and obtain the best possible value. Entering into agreement with Omnia Partners would give us additional legal avenues to obtain goods and services at prices competitively bid on. A few of Omnia's top suppliers utilized in New Mexico are Amazon, Grainger, Cone, Software, Safeware, and Home Depot. I have also put in their attachment of other contracts that Omnia uses. These contracts are similar to state contracts and GSA agreements. The city incurs no cost entering into agreement with Omnia. Omnia makes its money off of the suppliers. In pursuant to MSA 13-1-135A, any state agency or local public body may either participate in, sponsor, or administer a corporate procurement agreement for the procurement of any services, construction, or items of tangible personal property with any other state agency, local public body, or external procurement unit in accordance with an agreement entered into and approved by the governing authority of each of the state agencies, local public bodies, or external procurement units involved. So I come before you to ask for approval to enter into this agreement. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions? There being none. You have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was deep in thought. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to consider approval of the intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement and authorization of the city manager to enter into contract. Be added to the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to place on the consent agenda the approval of the intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement and authorize for the city manager to enter into the contract with the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same. Being none, let the record show 4-0. Next item on the agenda is the item number 6. Best Friends Animal Society consider recommending entering into a grant agreement between Best Friends and the city of Roswell. Councilor Halverson, you're up.
So we've met with several of the animal groups in Roswell, and they let us on to Best Friends Animal Society. I do have a gentleman online, I think he's still there, from the Best Friends. What we're trying to do is have them come in, because as we know, by no fault of the staff of the animal control is having a lot of issues right now. This group are a bunch of professionals. They can come in and we're hoping to help organize it properly, train everyone, let us know what we're doing and improve the situation for the animals. As we all know, the biggest problem you saw in the paper today isn't so much animal control, people in Roswell just aren't getting the animals fixed. They led us on to several grants, which Elizabeth is now working on to try to do some spay neuter programs. But the whole thing with this organization, we wanted to come in and help clean up, and Tess has some information, and Richard Angelo's with Best Friends, he's online to encourage potential questions.
No, Councilor, it's a Mr. Chair, Council, it's not quite a typical contract that we see, but some questions that might pop up are, so structurally speaking, what's happening is Best Friends is going to save us personnel costs for a year and insert somebody with a lot more knowledge about how to run the shelter than the city presently has. Knock on wood. So that the person Best Friends implants, we're going to discuss that it will be subject to our approval up front. Anything that this person will come in managerial capacity, everything will still be subject to the personnel rules and regulations, and any new policies have to be approved by management in the normal style for policies and procedures. Ideally, this will go on for a year. Maybe the person they find sticks around and it works out very well. The only thing, and this was just a matter of negotiation, because they drive a hard bargain, and frankly, they're negotiating to give us something for free that we don't have. So the indemnity clause is, we usually have a blanket indemnity. We now indemnify each other for our own stupidity, which is not unusual way to indemnify in the private sector. And then similarly, there's no waiver of sovereign immunity. However, if we were to litigate, which I doubt, I really hope it doesn't happen either, it would be the law of Utah, but in Chavez County. And looking into it, there's Utah, yeah, they're based in Utah. So we agreed to meet in the middle, and I didn't want to fly up to Salt Lake.
And I would like to point out, they have been here, I think, twice now to do inspections and stuff and help train our staff, and staff's work really well. I'm very happy with their services.
Yeah, and frankly, to get to litigation would be kind of hard because we have a 10-day out. We have a 10-day termination clause for cause and a 30-day without cause. So there's really hopefully very little to worry about.
Do you have anything, Ms. Angelo?
He muted himself.
I didn't want my dogs to bark at any of you. So. No, I think that's a good summary. And just so you know, I'm Richard Angelo. I'm a senior manager of our national embed program. I oversee these programs around the country right now. So I'm very familiar with some of the work that we've done in Roswell, and we're pretty excited to get this to this point.
In my focus too, they will help us with any programs we already have in place, like PNR that we voted in.
My question is, now, I guess Mr. Burris oversees the animal control shelter. And will this person report to Best Friends or Mr. Burris?
According to the language we have here in the contract, it would be reporting to the agency head, which would be.
And so how do you resolve conflicts between their employee and Mr. Burris under the normal chain of command that we have in the city?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
That you would then be the ultimate?
Yes, sir. Agencies, employees, volunteers, and interim director will utilize the appropriate agency internal process to report such behaviors.
Okay, Councilor Best.
Well, I have a little bit of a problem with that, but my next question is on page 53. The contract says that the parties do not fully execute the agreement by June 19th.
Yeah.
Past that. It is void and revoked. And my also concerns are the photos that we are allowing them to take and utilize for themselves, non-exclusive, and they're forever rolling perpetual. So they can use the photos of the city forever and ever and ever, as long as they want to. And during public safety, when I did the police photo wanting to come in before y'all even got in, I didn't feel that we needed to put Roswell in that light. So whatever pictures they take of how we are working now, it's supposed to increase and be better. I understand that. But there is no sunset clause on how long they can use Roswell in their ads. And it also says that they get any royalties, if I read it correctly, they get any royalties off the city of Roswell from our animal shelter and us doing well, good, bad, whatever.
Mr. Chair, yeah, that is correct. They get to take photos while here and they get to use to publicize the good work that they do. That's sort of the exchange. We're getting a free manager with specialty, with expertise. They get to go brag about it nationally. This does not preclude us from using our own images, of course. And then similarly, and this is, thank you, Councilor, for catching that June date. That was the initial kind of timeframe we'd set. That we actually have a more updated version that clears up these little things that Best Friends has. It got to me before the publication deadline.
It's September.
It's September something now.
So we'll see a contract that has a relevant date.
Yeah, the contract will have a more relevant date, and then the attachment, there's an attachment that's also included that lists the programs that in the program that was all, how would you say, it all something that could be bothersome. The council has already approved by resolution.
Yeah.
So all of the programs city administration is already trying to implement or made attempts at before. We just couldn't get it done very well.
Any further? Councilor Corn.
Mr. Chairman, Counselor, if on this videos, could we put a clause in here that says during the term of our agreement?
Yes.
We'd have to run it by them, but I think the issue is once this ends, if it's a success, they want to be using the videos after.
Well, and as long as we're getting along, that's great. But if we have fallen out, then you can put in this initial agreement that they have to take all our stuff down.
Amen.
That way it just, as long as they can do what they want to, as long as we have an agreement. If something happens, then they got to remove all that stuff.
I'd also like that. I agree with what you say, but also after the year's over, if we are put in a bad light anywhere along the road going down the way, should be allowed to pull.
Yeah, I think
We just don't need negativity. We've got enough of it as it is. I agree in building it up, but we don't need to backslide.
well,
And that's my opinion, whether it's laughable or not.
no, I think they're valid points. And if we have fallen out and everybody leaves the room mad, then that's one thing. But if we mutually agree, then that's another issue. But I think we need to cover ourselves in that. So I think this thing needs to be, I mean, I read through this, had some of the concerns you shared, Counselor. And I think we need to get back to them and say, hey, we don't mind using your stuff. Going before, when they first got here and after we worked on this together for a period of time, whatever that is, then I think it benefits them, also benefits us. But if under the rules of this, they could choose at a later date just to show all the bad stuff and say whatever they want to about it. And I think that.
So does paragraph 8 cover it sufficiently? Because we did put in a non-disparagement.
Let me look at it real quick.
Page 56, paragraph 8. During the term of the agreement, agency and Best Friends both agree to take reasonable commercial measures to ensure its representatives and official media outlets do not make public statements, including but not limited to social media posts regarding activities covered by this agreement that are intended to or likely to bring other Best Friends or the agency into this report.
I would, that's fine, except it's still open-ended. It doesn't have a cutoff. And I'm suggesting that we put a cutoff in there to court. For 20 years, may go on for 6 months. I don't know.
This
But in the end, you need to say, okay,
the 8/7.
we're not getting along. great, everybody go their separate way. That means we're done. You got to take all your stuff down to Penny does, period. Now, they can go around individually at some meeting and say, oh, that Raw's a bunch of losers. Nothing we people from doing that, because you get into the First Amendment of the Constitution, you're entitled to say whatever your opinion is. But we just don't have, there's not a safety net here, in my opinion, for the city of Roswell. That's the job they've got.
Counselor, can you tell them in short what the problem is?
Beg your pardon?
In short words, just what your problem is, so we can hear.
Well, yeah, it's basically, there's not an ending clause in this contract. And I want to make it sure that if we part ways, that you go your way, we go ours, and any photos and stuff, you're still entitled to your opinion. I can't take that away from you. But it has to come down. All the images have to come down, photos. I mean, we just got some work to do. This is a good start, don't get me wrong. And the city manager just pointed out under item 7 on 56, where it says non-exclusive forever, royalty-free right, license, permission to photograph, video. It's okay while you're here. But if we sever our perpetuals, what it says, Counselor.
Well, no, I guess your word is, they can only do that for the year that they have the person here.
I'm sorry, I beg to differ with you on your legal opinion, Counselor.
No, we can tighten it up.
I think it needs to be
Page
tightened.
56, item 7.
Yes. We use the word professional.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bad word. You also need something in here that spells it out. Whenever we cease to be business partners, then this is, you got to follow X, Y, and Z.
But you're only saying, I'm sorry, you're only saying if we end on bad terms.
Doesn't matter, good terms, bad terms.
Because they make videos that they put on YouTube to show their success.
And as long as we're under contract, I don't have a problem with that. But if we mutually agree to dissolve our relationship, or somebody fires the other somebody, then all that stuff needs to come down.
So what if, when their contract is over and they want to do a video to show our successes, you're saying they can't do that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Because they need to be able to show their successes. That's what how they.
Then maybe you need to word in there successes only, because it could be the failure, especially if we're gonna have this person follow our chain of command. It may not work for that person because that chain of command is not working now at the animal control.
I'm okay with saying if the contract ends badly or poorly, they can swear this in any way like over the past year. But if this contract, if it runs successfully, I fully think they should have the option to be able to show a video saying, hey, look.
I had to get all of that off.
Like they do all the other organizations.
Well, I'm ready to get into agreement with these people, okay? Because we got to have some help. And I think that they can offer us the help.
Counselor, what I think might be how about if these videos are mutually agreed upon before they're posted? I don't mind them having them if we mutually agree upon them. If the city manager can mutually agree upon what these videos are or what these photos are. So then you have control from not being able to. And if they want to show the successes 10 years from now, so be it. So be it. But if we mutually agree upon what's going to get posted and utilized, that should solve this issue.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I spent 15 years deciding that one party thought it was a mutual separation, the other one was a matter than a whole wet hen. So you can't use, well, we mutually departed, or one of us got fired, or, I mean, you know, it's not going to be difficult to get it to that level, in my opinion. And I'll be
Let me
glad.
just ask you this, because if you say, okay, we'll do what, and we don't have a mutually acceptable, while they're running under this agreement, they could post whatever negativity they want.
Oh,
So
I agree.
why would we allow that to happen?
Well,
So that's why I'm saying that we need to be what is mutually agreeable. There can be format that will establish what's mutually agreeable, that their person signs off, city manager signs off, and if that's not there, Counselor,
How about amending the non-disparagement clause to make it a decade? Would that be enough?
make it what?
A decade? Because right now it's 4 years total. It's 3 years after the inflation. So I feel like that doesn't seem like an unreasonable way to accomplish what everybody wants. They still get to post stuff and they'll, because part of the problem is we're getting into IP, and I don't want to write an intellectual property contract with these people. And part of the arrangement, again, the arrangement is they get to use us for advertising and their fundraising because they've given us. That's
and I don't have a problem
Let me let Counselor Arnold have the floor for a second. She's been patient.
So worked on both sides of this. And the whole idea for them to help us is so that they can actually use it to promote themselves, to be able to help others, and to actually regain what they gave by being here. That being said, I also think it would not be very beneficial for them to produce negative pictures afterwards because they were working for us. So why would they want to disparage themselves? We need to get this moving. And he's right, this is intellectual property. And the whole idea that we operate on the what ifs, the world is going to crumble, is the reason the world crumbles. We actually should look at this as a positive thing, and actually something where we should go in and say, okay, we're going to come together, we're going to unite, and we're going to kick ass at this. The whole idea, I get that you're being legally, but they can say all that anyway. But then again, they're the ones working the program, so they're the ones that look bad. So I don't agree, and I'll vote accordingly.
Counselor Corn.
Mr. Chairman, under its present format, I'm a no vote.
All I want is the word mutually acceptable.
Yeah, but you get into.
You create a format. Here's the media. Here's the media. I signed off, you signed off. How can that not be disputed?
Trust me, it can be disputed. But that's where you get into intellectual property.
Yeah. Ken Richards, do you want to speak?
It's up to you folks. I didn't want to interrupt or be rude about it because I can't see your videos. I will tell you, I've been involved in these programs for going on almost 10 years with Best Friends. And part of the reason for the pictures is so that we can promote not only Best Friends, but you as the good things are going on during this program, because part of it is getting the good publicity out there and driving your community to let them know that good things are going on at the shelter. That's the whole point of it. And half the time, like at our conference in Houston this year, we have people in these programs in former places that we worked coming to speak and doing videos. And we're promoting them at that point in time too. I cannot remember Best Friends ever posting a negative video or a negative picture or putting any of that out there. And that's the whole point of, for clarity, I was on our advocacy team. I'm a legislative attorney. I'm licensed in the state of Michigan. I've been working in New Mexico for ages on stuff like this. So I've seen these clauses before. And mutual non-disparagement goes for a year, and it only applies to the project as that term is written within there. It's only for programs and events. We can't take your pictures afterward. We can't come in and take pictures afterward and try to get some kind of non-license. It's all just so that we don't have to pay for the pictures that we're doing right then and there while we're in the program. That's the non-disparagement. I think it was explained perfectly by whoever that was presenting as far as how that goes. I mean, without being able to promote the program through pictures and videos and all of that good stuff, it's going to severely handcuff the potential success of the program. And while I understand the mutually agreed upon portion of it, it sounds reasonable at the time, but we all know how those types of things work. If you have a program of an event or a clinic that you may be running, say, this Saturday, and you want to get it in there, and 5 people need to agree upon it, and you can run 3 before Saturday, now all of a sudden you aren't promoting that particular event to its particular success level. I understand the concerns. I really, really do. I mean, animal welfare is it's sometimes a crazy business, but these programs, and we only have a handful of them going right now across the country, probably 6 or 7. It is incumbent upon us and you work together and collaborate on these things. We're seen as partners. This is not supposed to be and we don't envision it being a adversarial relationship in any way, shape, or form.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond to him.
Sure, Councilor.
I mean, I don't know you. I don't know your organization except by reputation. I haven't gone on your website. I haven't done any of that kind of stuff, but there are other groups that are supposedly going to save all the animals that go out of their way to show the negative side of all of this stuff. I recognize the negative side. But the problem is they always show the before picture. They don't ever show you the after picture after the animal's been taken care of, put on a little weight, made healthy again. That's the trouble. You want to bring take a picture of somebody that one of the dogs that are brought in, being picked up after being in the desert for a week, and then right next to him, because of our intervention and work, and the help of the Roswell Humane groups, this is what the animal looks like today. I think that's great.
I mean, that's the whole point of these programs. We don't want to show anything bad. We're not going to.
But I can tell you that people enter into agreements with the best circumstances that fall apart.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't ever do any family law when I was a judge. But you see people get married and 6 months later they're filing for a divorce. I mean.
Understood, sir.
They didn't enter into that agreement of being married, hopefully lightly. Some people, I guess, do. And then everything goes off to the right or left.
And they want those pictures back if they can't get back.
Well,
yeah.
You know, they were smiling for those pictures and they're not smiling today.
Yeah.
I understand that. That's the reason why I think there just needs to be a little more refinement on this. And I agree with our learned legal mind that we don't want to get into the problem of intellectual property. That's the reason why the mutual agreement thing kind of has some flags waving too. I understand what you and your group are trying to do. I welcome you. I'm all for it. But I think there needs to be protection, not only for the city of Roswell, but for you guys too. And that's not in, I don't see that in here. Maybe somebody can straighten the old judge out, say, well, Judge, did you happen to look at clause 14 on page 53? You know, and I go, well, I don't know. I looked at it. Let me look at it again. I mean, I'm educatable. Some people don't agree with that, but I really am. And that just, I think it needs a little more scrutiny. This is our first public meeting on this item. So I think it just needs a little fine tuning. I think that the city manager pointed out to me the word perpetual. Strike it out of there. Maybe it's on under item number 7 on page 56, council. Second line there, second word in. I don't know. I'm going to give that some thought. That may do it. That may do it for me. But we're kind of thinking on the move, and I want this to be a long-term relationship. I don't want it to end in 6 months or a year. Whenever I finally get tired of running or I get defeated in 2.5 years now, then I want this to continue on. I don't want it to hinge on what Councilor Corn said. But I also feel an obligation to protect both parties, not just us, but you guys too. And there's just some little flags waving in my mind that we need to kind of tighten up, in my opinion.
Council, I want to get you two next.
If I can just ask, Mr. Chairman, Angelo, how many government municipalities or towns or other places have y'all worked with or are currently working with? Oh, I've got a list here. It's been handed to me. El Paso, Santa Rosa County, the Animal Foundation of Nevada, Palm Valley of Texas, Pine Bluff of Arkansas, or is that Alaska, AK?
Arkansas.
Okay. And Humane Society of Harlingen, Texas, Brownsville, Fresno, Prattville, Prince George's County of Maryland, Oklahoma City. I'm not trying to dispute any of those, Abilene here, but we've got some pretty strong heavy hitters here who have recognized and have agreed to the terms that probably very close to what I don't know, and I'll ask our attorney, probably very close to what we have presented here. I don't know.
I have not looked at their contract. This started off from their model contract and we negotiated.
Okay. And that's just what I would just say, I'm sure that there's a model contract when we work from there. I recognize, and I think that there's some validity to what's being recognized here, but I don't want to see this pushed any further down the road. We've got animals that need the help now. My recommendations, all I can give, Mr. Chairman, is that the committee give the council the next meeting something.
Councilor Page.
Who's first?
Okay, Councilor.
He actually pretty much, Councilman Perry pretty much hit on where I was headed, but I do have one question. How long have you been negotiating?
2.5, 3 months.
Okay, I yield.
Councilor.
My concern is that we don't seem to have something that we can all agree on. And it would seem to me that maybe it's something that we do need to put off for another month and see if we can get some of these issues that are being brought up addressed before it goes to full council.
Well,
my question is, excuse me, Councilor, my question is this, it's been going on for 2.5 months.
At least.
And now it shows up. And what was the delay of why it?
You gotta get the terms that I thought would be presentable to you guys. He's presenting the form right now.
Yeah. And,
have to be able to negotiate something on your behalf.
And now here we are with, there's going to be 10 different inputs on this topic. And how do we get to resolution that it's workable for the council to approve and for best friends to approve? And I guess the question I have with you, Councilor, is how what terms have you changed from their model that they were agreeable to do? Or is this the model?
Oh, I can give you a red line from the very first to this.
So and then they were agreeable to recommendations and changes that you made?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would only say that if we send it to full council with no resolution,
it's just going to get.
we're going to spend 2 or 3 hours at full council trying to decipher and agree on different languages.
And I agree with you, because then it's just going to get kicked back to go back to talk to best friends. And so how do we get
So a couple months ago, when we started with all this, I think I emailed at least you guys a video of one of their event programs. So I highly recommend that we put it forward, like Mr. Perry said, with the amendment. But I encourage you, go visit their Facebook page, go visit their website, go visit their YouTube thing. You won't see anything negative. It's all positive success stories. So I don't think it's negative.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I'm reasonably impressed by the number of people they've had signed up. But I don't know what their contracts say. I don't know. We don't know. This is our contract with this organization. And I mean, I'll move whenever you think is appropriate, Mr. Chairman, to strike this one word.
I've got my own opinion, but I make the motions and I will accept whatever motion comes from the floor.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Mr. Eintema, if we actually send this with a do not recommend to full council, or if we send, so basically, no matter how we vote, it still moves to full council, correct? Because.
No. If it didn't make it out of this committee.
Without recommendation.
You do it without a recommendation. You can move it without a recommendation.
You can table it, you can do whatever you want to with it.
Yeah, we can send it to full council without a recommendation, but it's got to be a majority vote to get that done. If it comes out of here 2-2, it's just going to sit.
It has to be 3-1, which I think you have it 3-1. And then they can work on the amendment before council.
Oh, big fight.
My question is, we don't know what these other communities, whether they have all agreed to that word perpetual or whether it's in their contract. We don't know that.
Nope.
And that can be investigated before council.
And if we knew what that was, so I'm inclined to let this thing roll forward and get that thing worked out and finish it up and find out what a council has and find out that answer if the word's perpetual and what these other communities have. Some of these are neighboring communities. So I'm inclined to let this thing roll as is and deal with it at council.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to call the vote.
Give me a motion.
I thought we did give a motion. We didn't do discussion first, did we? No,
You didn't get the motion.
we went right into
We
discussion.
do not have a motion.
We just went right into discussion. Okay. Make sure I got the right one, Mr. Chair.
Before you make your motion, Councilor Orr.
Before you make your motion, Councilor Horn, were you not going to offer an amendment to?
I was going to try unless everybody cuts me off.
We need a motion first to get this.
Oh, I'm saying before we make the motion to send forward, I thought Councilor Horn was going to make an amendment to strike a word.
And that's why I asked you earlier if you had something, because I was going to call for the vote, so.
I've said 2 or 3 times when it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to offer. So
If you make the amendment, I will second the amendment.
so we can vote on the amendment and then we can go back and proceed on the whole thing.
Yep.
Haven't heard amendment. I have not heard any motions of magnitude.
Right, and that's.
At this point in
the first
time.
step would be to actually.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now? I wish to offer an amendment.
I would ask that you lower your voice.
Well, then don't act like you haven't been hearing.
No, I have not heard you make a motion.
No, we don't.
You have not made a motion.
I said,
So if you would like to make a motion to amend this, please do so.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to propose. Are you ready for the amendment?
I'm listening.
Oh, well,
You don't need my permission to proceed with what you're trying to say.
well, I'm asking for it anyway.
Well, then proceed.
Thank you. I move to strike on page 56 under item 7, second line, the word perpetual, which is the second word in. So the paragraph would read, agency grants to best friends, including employees, contractors, and agents, the non-exclusive royalty-free right license permission to photograph, video, and audio recordings of any of the agency's programs or events associated with the project for the duration of the project. And I won't read the rest of the paragraph.
Second.
A motion to amend this contract by removing on paragraph 7, the word perpetual, and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Aye.
Aye.
Motion fails.
I missed something, I'm sorry. You had 3 yays and 1 nay?
No. 2-2
Thank you. For the amendment only?
for the amendment only.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend entering into a grant agreement between Best Friends Animal Society and the City of Roswell.
Mr. Chair, I will second for the purpose of sending it to full council so we can discuss it and hopefully get it clarified.
Thank you for that. I have a motion and a second to advance this item to full council. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Let the record show 3-1. Moves on to full council. Next item on the agenda. Ordinance 23 for airport rules and regulations and amendments to chapter 5 of the Roswell Code. Are you going to take this or is?
I can handle this. So, Councilors, Mr. Chair, this is the updated rules and regulations that were proposed by our security consultants who have done this for a number of other airports, our security team, and myself. This is part of our TSA compliance, so I hope you don't mind it too much. This was given to you a month ago. I've not received any comments. The rules and regulations. The Airport Commission had one comment for your consideration, and that would be on page, let me pull it up here. On page 53, or I'm sorry, pardon me, page 93, under escort procedures, which is paragraph subsection 8.4. And if we go to the very bottom of the page, the last sentence, the maximum number of persons that can be escorted by one badge person is 4. The security team has no problem, and this is what the Airport Commission said, making that number 4 a 5. And then at the bottom of the next page of 94, under 8.4.4, changing the vehicle escort ratio from 1-to-1 to 1-to-3. They don't think TSA will have any problems with that in this way now. You know, if you and 2 buddies are going to go flying, for example, they each can have their car instead of having to leave the car outside the gate and this and that. Now, the only, so those rules, like I said, we received those were the only comments we've received about the substantive rules and regulations. These will become part of our airport security program. So we really have to get this moving because that has to be finished up in September. Now, at the beginning, there are some amendments to the ordinance to give this teeth as required by federal regulation. Sorry to backstep. If you go to page 91, you'll see that the airport's regulation shall carry the force of law and may be enforced criminally or administratively by the proper authority. The airport director is going to have the administrative component, and consistent with other practice, a different branch of the city would have the criminal component. Any rule or regulation violation within the rules would be administratively handled for any level of mental culpability for the honorable judge of the mens rea. And then throw a little out. However, if there is a knowing or intentional violation of the rules, that could be criminal. The idea being, some dude who wanders off and just doesn't realize what happened, we're not going to take him over to you.
But somebody intentionally jumps the fence and lights fire, yeah, we're going to put them in jail for a while. Similarly, section 5.8, which is page 93, it just covers, it states this again, saying that if guilty of a misdemeanor. Also, part B, we have made aiding or abetting a misdemeanor as well. By way of example, if somebody let's say, helps them jump the fence, but doesn't jump the fence themselves, now we have both of them.
Co-conspirator.
Yeah, conspiracy liability. And then.
So that's a misdemeanor?
Well, it'd be a petty misdemeanor, but that's all the jurisdiction.
Generally, aiding and abetting falls down one level.
There's no level to drop.
That's no level to drop. So, and if this gets to the criminal, it's going to be under federal jurisdiction anyway, so.
And then for those of you who are curious, there is a civil administrative provision that's going to be internal to the airport. What will happen is a designee of the, where'd you go? Ms. Priego will write an initial citation. These are called warrants. Don't worry about the acronym. At that point, depending on the severity, you can immediately challenge, and you would give a written notification saying, I'm challenging my citation. It would then go to, you could appeal it to the security manager, who would, it's pretty much an insta appeal at that point. He'll read it and be like, no, this doesn't even say a violation. Sorry about that. Have a good day. If he sustains it, you'll then have a 2-week period to appeal it to the airport manager. We anticipate these appeals would be for more serious violations resulting in the loss of your badging. A loss of a badge means loss of a job, effectively. There's 4 different levels of perpetual loss of a badge. You have to do something repeatedly that really gets our attention, you never learn from it, or something quite serious the first time around. These are outlined in the. Now, of course, as any civil administrative provision, you'll have an appeal to the director, you're entitled to a hearing. The director will make a ruling based on substantial evidence. If you disagree with that, it would go to the district court.
District court.
Which is, in New Mexico, every appeal has to go there.
Okay.
So same thing with appeal from here would go to the MAJ and then to the district. And that's all I've got.
So I'm not sure exactly, there's only one thing that stood out. Everything else I'm solid with. But so section 5-4 rules and regulations, section B, are these additions that you guys are adding in the red?
In the red, oh yes, so the red, if it's crossed out, is a deletion. The addition is in red without a line through it.
Okay. So the only thing I have was that I believe it should say airport director and designees. The pronoun needs to be removed because it's assumptive that we will actually continue to hire women.
Well, I think we will continue to hire women if they're the best qualified counselor.
But
yeah, it's just a convention to put one or the other, but we can make it gender neutral.
Well, yeah, because we don't know how long she'll be here. What if the next one is a man?
How about if we put, this is discussion. Remove the word her and put appointed designees.
Okay, beautiful. I like it. Very open. And that way.
I might win one today.
Join too.
Even score.
So could you repeat that one more time, Counselor?
Take out the word her.
And put in appointed designee.
And put in the word appointed.
So the airport directors.
And appointed designees.
Yep, that works. And then, so I guess I'd ask too that you guys accept the airport commission's recommendations on the escort ratios.
And I'm ready to do that. When you're ready for it.
If there's any further discussion.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask for a motion.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so on page 93, actually, I'll change this.
Are you going backwards, forward?
So I'm going to start with the regulations themselves.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to
the ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would like to change the last word on the page, at least on my copy, under 8.4.1.4, that one badged ROW person the maximum number of persons, change 4 to reflect the language 5 in parentheses 5. And then on page 94, under 8.4.4.2, last part, the last word or sentence, last part of the sentence, to change the 1:1 to read 1:3. You want me to do the rest of it?
Yeah, you get a roll.
Okay.
Roll it out.
And then back on the ordinance itself, under 5-4B, to strike the word her and insert there a loop appointed.
Which section was that, Counselor?
5.4.
5.4.
It's on page 62.
Gotcha.
I already thought about that one. Other elected members have the voice too. I'm gonna try to get to be nice because I've got some other fights coming up.
Don't look at me.
We've been at it for 2 minutes. Okay, so you got those changes? Motion. Do I have a second? So, is there any further? No, I got the motion.
Okay, I said second.
And you seconded it. So any further discussion
On the amendment.
on the amendments as put forth?
Yeah.
No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Being none, let the record show 4-0. Now, Councilor.
Mr. Chairman, I now move that we forward this to city council. Let's see, what we're doing is recommending to advertise.
Yes.
That we move ordinance 23-XX Airport Rules and Regulations and amendments to Chapter 5 Roswell Code and recommend advertising as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Is it going to consent or full?
Pardon?
It has to be, because it's for advertisement.
Right.
We gotta, it's kind of got its own path.
Right. This takes 60 days.
Yeah.
So any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed being same. None. Let the record show 4-0. Next item on the agenda, item number 8. Oh, yeah. We've been at it for 2 hours. I want to stretch around here for a second.
Okay.
Let's take a 10-minute recess.
Mr. Chair, just remember we need to be done with this meeting before P and Z's meeting at 6 this afternoon.
We can make it that.
They may just have to wait.
I'm starving.
We better be ready by 6. I hope. I shouldn't say we better. I hope.
No, we're pretty feisty.
Which is good. Great dialogue.
My plan would work.
Oh, we were looking at you. You didn't look at us.
And you just kept looking down.
Then he kept encouraging the conversation.
Yes.
Remember, I said that doesn't apply to me.
You can stand. You have all the free will you can stand.
So we don't get.
I didn't have short legs, I'd kick your butt.
I'm not sure. Thank God there's a.
Right, yeah, because for me, it's just, it's the side.
That doesn't make, my opinion, taking that word out does not get us any better, any worse on the intellectual property.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm doing that.
So that's the reason why I started thinking about it. I go, let's do that. Well, you might see, they shouldn't have any harm. I'll live with it after that. If we gotta go to litigation, let's go to litigation.
Yeah, no, I'll ask them to send over their contracts with El Paso.
That would be interesting. But even then, it's like that word professional, that's a dangerous word.
Yeah, no, and I did look into it when I first started. And that's standard.
So it was.
One of the IP contracts we have with, the concert is they have, perpetual agreements until
And that's.
Well, I
This, if you take that word out, it goes a long way. I'm not convinced. I'll look at it again.
Yeah, I guess I'm not, because it's an all year round discharge.
I think those a little bit. No, that's election.
Oh, no, no, well, that's another part of it. It's in
Why can't we get this done for God's sake?
the non, the non-conversion clause. Well received, so you could answer the contract shortly.
Oh, look at that. I read Chris and I go, first time I read it, I go, because I'm all for it. You know, best way to, you know, and I look at him, I say, "Now, I still have a question. Come on, y'all. Friends." And when he looked over the shoulder, it's me. Yeah. And I'd say, you know what? So you guys come for me to make a decision. And I'm probably gonna piss you both off. Just tell them flat. I think that you guys need about 5 or 10 minutes. And I have need to go get a cup of coffee. Everybody else is get out of here. Let those two, see if they work out there. You know how many times that works? 98% of the time.
Right.
And this is what we
I'm not keeping score. You're keeping score.
I've just seen this. Good or bad.
I just want to move it on. It's going to take care of it.
You're involved with these deals. You enter the contract, you got the end.
Right.
Spells out what you're doing, and you're still going to court.
Right, and they need to pin upon one guy in a black robe to decide whether that's right or wrong and different. And you hope like hell he lives by the law.
Well.
That's what you're trying to do. Exactly.
You present the facts, I will decide the case on the facts presented.
No, it doesn't.
And any case law that might be out there that you bring. I never went and researched.
Oh, no, it's up to the attorney.
That's right. So if you're not in the file,
Forget it.
then they ain't gonna enter in the file.
Okay. Let's call this meeting back to order.
Still working.
Are you back to recording or did you ever stop?
We never stopped.
You never stopped.
We just unmuted it.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 8, which is an ordinance dealing with real property sales and leases. So, council.
Right. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this is an action item just because in case you fell madly in love with it, I'd let it be able to go forward. I understand this is probably something you want to sit in, chew on for a month. So a lot of, Roswell does not have, and when we go into closed session later, I'll describe to you the litigation that's kind of the impetus for this, but we don't actually have any hard rules about when the administration can exercise a contract for real property without the governing body's permission. We also we only have 2 resolutions that regard when an interim contract can be made by the administration without governing body approval. The idea here is just to set some definitive rules. This provides a framework. Whatever you guys want to change, I take when I discussed with Mr. Cole, he and I just feel a lot more comfortable if we know exactly what he can do or in exactly what you guys want to hear. This is modeled after Albuquerque's, which seems to work all right for them. So now, interestingly, Albuquerque's is interesting because they made it in the 70s and had no amendment since. And they do a lot of real property work. There are some changes here for the sake of Roswell's particular type of government though. So first, section 2-201, and this is a standard thing that a number of municipalities in Albuquerque uses, that the city will not divest itself of real estate if it has a legitimate municipal purpose. So if it is an income property, say at the airport, the council would have to particularly vote to exclude it from this ordinance. Similarly, that said, if we have a piece of property, a house that was bequeathed to the library, that's not a municipal purpose. So again, we're not going to, the administration can never get rid of property that's currently in use by the city. So part 2, appraisal, section 2-202 pretty much just mirrors state law. This is what we should be doing anyway. Doing a review, sometimes we haven't done it as closely as we could have. And so this just allows easy access for whoever is doing real property work for us in the future. 203, notice and approval. This is the first kind of meat of it that isn't state law, or it's partly state law. But anything worth less than $5,000 can be sold by the administration with the signature of the mayor and the manager. The goal here was that we want at least one elected official always signing off on a real property transfer. Sales and right would have to be communicated to the legal committee at the next regular meeting. Real property between 5 and 25 would simply be sold by majority vote of the council. And then subsection C is a recitation of state law regarding property worth more than $25,000. And subsection D is a reporting requirement. So submitted to the governing body shall be supported by the appraisal, the determination that it's not essential for municipal purpose, and a description of the disposal process or otherwise received, or other offers received. So it's a somewhat broad reporting requirement. The idea is that the bureaucratic administration is doing anything without your guys' explicit permission regarding real property, you need to have a pretty good detailed report of how it went down. 2-204 is as you know, I like zoning laws, or at least I'm familiar with them, unfortunately. This just cleans up something in the past when the city has sold property, the zoning fit in. So we'll take care of the zoning before anybody purchases property. Next is leases for property owned by the city. This is something that the details here, I'm sure you will have input on. Typically, there's going to be two ways you can act a lease, unless it exceeds certain thresholds, would be executed by the administration. By way of example, so the two leases we had with Avex, those would be able to be executed by the administration because they're under a certain period of years or under a certain dollar threshold. So I'll explain. If it is a non-airport lease, anything in excess of 2 years has to go to the council automatically. If it's in excess of 5 years at the airport, and this would be including extensions, it has to go to the council. In the alternative, if it's in excess of a month and the city will be receiving more than the equivalent of $60,000 a year, $5,000 a month, it would also go to the council. This excludes utilities under franchise agreements because they're separate ordinances. The idea here is this simply matches the state law when it comes to procurement. Under $60,000, the manager can do it for professional services. So under $60,000 in 5 years for an airport lease, makes sense to keep it internal. You guys would still receive the same reports though, stating that, and I'll go down here a little bit further. In any case, lease is not made in the course of regular operations. This is subsection D of this section. Have to go through what is prescribed in 2-203. That's just state law. Acquisition. As far as acquisition of real property goes, there's two options. The mayor and manager may jointly do it together, previously appropriated by the governing body through budget or some other action. And in the alternative, the governing body has to vote to acquire real property. Something I heard from a number of counselors is if it's an explicit thing that we've already approved, why are we voting on it a second or third time? So if you guys approve the city to purchase, the parking lot over there, why are we approving the real estate contract? Good point. You've approved the purchase. It's a land purchase. They're all standardized contracts now. Finally, leasing real property from the city. If anytime we are going to lease, the city will lease property, there would be anything over a year or in excess of $16.67 a month. So $20,000 a year would go to the council unless previously approved. And then finally, subsection C of 207, the mayor, manager, and his designee may enter into an interim lease for a particular transaction no more than 45 days to allow for approval of the governing body. In the event the governing body does not approve the lease within 45 days, the lease shall terminate instantly upon such disapproval or completion of 45 days. This, like I said, in closed session, I'll explain to you why that particular clause is, I think, something we will need to have in our ordinances one way or the other, regardless of what you think of this, the rest of this. And then finally, because in section 208, because the administration is being given the ability to enter, to divest itself of the only type of thing that is not being created anymore, real property, any person who misrepresents or intentionally omits information that has to be communicated to the legal committee or the governing body for any real property transaction is going to give a misdemeanor. So if I report to you that we sold something, let's say it's at the airport, I didn't get into that detail, but at the airport, the person selling it has to communicate to you that it meets all FAA requirements. And if I send a deal to you that in fact does not, I've now committed a crime. So it's just truth in reporting. Otherwise, like we said, if you guys love it already and want to send it forward, that's great. You probably want to sit on it. I'd love to get comments from you or anybody in the room, frankly, about this. Because right now, I have to advise the manager that any single real property transaction has to go to you guys, and it seems a little burdensome and silly considering how our procurement works.
Any questions? 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 A couple of questions.
Sure.
I have a real difficulty with these 5-year term that you're putting on there for property owned by the airport. When we started reviewing some of these leases in the last 15 months, I found that they were substandard, that it was being pushed through or put through for approval, didn't have cost of living increases. We weren't sure they were at market rates. So how do you, what's going to be the backstop for that? Because it turned out to be that this committee was the backstop for that. And hearing what residents say, how come they got that deal? Well, then you're going to say, if we pass it like it is, why didn't know anything about it? Aren't you looking out after me? So I have a real difficulty with it. And the other one I have a difficulty with is being guilty of a misdemeanor. That's intentional is a felony.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's our jurisdiction.
I know. I don't think it's a misdemeanor.
Oh.
If you intentionally omit information.
Oh, sure.
That is not a misdemeanor.
Well,
but I know by our standards, that's all we can do, right?
Well, also too, it's now that we've created a legal reporting requirement, it arguably falls under the state's fraud statute. But I have no say in enforcing that, nor would my successor or you guys. So that's why we're putting it in so there's at least something.
I'm going to ask counsel.
Well, if it's something as in his example, where somebody said that it was in compliance with FAA regulations, TSA regulations, any of the alphabet soup, then it falls under federal jurisdiction that we don't have any control over anyway.
Right.
What he's talking about is very minor that won't reach the level of federal violation of law. Laws are built in layers.
Right.
And because, Mr. Chairman, I know you've noticed, because I've noticed, that many of our ordinances on the books have nothing. If you can go violate that ordinance all you want to, and there's nothing you can be done about it. And that's something I hope I can convince you and others on the committee to start looking at. I mean, we're playing so much catch up now. And to answer your question about the leases, we're slowly getting that changed. And when you're already in a contract, it's awful hard to say, oh, by the way, we're going to change this section and this section and this section. But we're getting there. I've noticed that in the last 6 or 8 months, that the leases all have been cleaned up.
Right.
And that's because we were the backstop. We made our point clear. And matter of fact, if you recall in the early days that we started this particular committee under this makeup, we sent it back to the airport, said, no, this ain't going to work.
Right.
And so I think that what this is doing, as I see it, as I read it, is that we don't have to see it. But if one of us gets wind of it and wants to see it, there's nothing that precludes us from dragging it in here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what's the backstop for this committee to know that took place? Is that provision in here?
Yeah. So
that there will be notification before?
Every time there's a lease entered into or any real estate transaction.
Or before it's entered into?
No. So there's no before. Now, one way we could do it. Well, so here's one municipality does, and I'm forgetting which, is they have a notification provision. saying there'll be a written communication to the council, their council from the administration, and they have 30 days to take it up. And if they don't, the administration can execute the deal.
Is your problem as you mentioned, 5 year? You want to shorten that to 1 year? I mean, I see a possibility of maybe 6-month leases.
Well, I do too, and I don't disagree with that. And I think this is to speed the process. This is all about speeding the process along so that it doesn't come to committee and then have to go to council. I get that whole thing, but I am not of the satisfaction of a 5-year term on, and I mean, you got 2 years in there for the other leases. I might be something to shorten all that.
Some of our leases are year to year.
Right. I don't care about those, do you?
Well,
only if the mayor and the city manager both have to sign off on it.
Yeah. Well, I don't have heartburn at a year or 2 years. 5 years, I agree with you, might be a little on the far side.
Yeah.
Personally, I think anybody that's in a business out there, if I was in a business out there, I'd be willing probably to look at a 5-year with 3 extensions so I could get my 20 years for planning purposes.
Right.
You understand that.
Yeah.
And we've already got the escalator in, CPI or 3%, whatever later. So
Thank you.